Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
All right, we're hitting the road. We're hitting the ground running, I should say. Welcome everybody to another session of Learn Photography with Duck. I am your host, Duck, and I want to welcome some new friends tonight. Spreading the word. If you enjoy these sessions, I do them the first, second, and third Monday of the month. The first Monday, we kind of cover Lightroom and everything Lightroom related. The second month is more about Adobe Photoshop. And the third Monday of the month is general Q&A. Anything and everything that has to do with photography, whatever is holding you up from getting to the next level, whether it's camera related, lighting related, accessories, or even editing images. Feel free to give me the problems you're having, and I hope that I will be able to give you a solution to it. That said, I also want to take this opportunity to thank my Patreons. I do have a Patreon page. You can see the link right below. It's Learn Photography with Duck, as well as the Facebook page. So if you enjoy these sessions, like Linda, share the word. Let your friends know that we do this the first, second, and third Monday. And it's a great way to just come together and discuss what we enjoy, photography. Okay. All right. That said, today is our general Q&A. So hopefully you have questions ready. And, I know it's the Christmas season. So what I want to, before we get to the Q&A, I want to just discuss a little bit about having your camera available this season to capture those holiday moments that are very special to us every year. And you have to keep in mind that this time of year, it is more about family than about photography. All right. Yes, we want to be able to capture those special moments, but don't overlook the special moment and get so wrapped up in the photography that you miss out on the family events, okay, which is easy to do. So I have 5 little tips that I want to share with you to kind of help you prepare for the holiday season and get you making better images, as the family gets together. Yes, I understand that because of COVID, the family units are a lot smaller now. A lot of us have what the new term is COVID pods. And these COVID pods are these just groups of people that share their environment, and you feel safe around them because you're all one unit that are kind of self-isolated together. So a lot of families are in these tight little COVID pods to celebrate the holiday season. So the big events where extended families come over and share the holiday season with you, or what we used to do last year and previously is just make the rounds. You go from house to house, you pop in, you have a little something to eat, you share the moment with them, and then you travel to the next person. That part of the holiday season has been curtailed because of the COVID. But that doesn't mean that you won't have opportunities to photograph your family. All right. So tip number 1, and it kind of sounds a little bit obvious, but I like to remind people, is to slow it down. Slow down. It's very easy to get caught up in the moment, especially if you have young kids, because they like to go a mile a minute, and you feel like you're playing catch up chasing after them. Try to get yourself to calm down, settle down, find your center, and then take control of your environment. If you want to capture great images, you can't be too concerned about everything that's going on. You have to kind of focus a little bit and concentrate and wrangle the mess around you so that you don't get caught up and make mistakes. All right. And for this, you literally just have to step back, take a deep breath, and take your time. Right? Which leads me to tip number 2. If you can, before the craziness occurs, find your locations where you're going to photograph and test the lighting. You want to be able to make sure that you have plenty of light for any given situation. And typically in households, it's going to be it's going to be around where all the food is. Obviously, people like to gather around where there's food. And then the second place is where the kids are going to be opening up their gifts. Now, I know in my family, we tend to kind of keep the lights down a little bit lower in order to appreciate the lights and the decoration. So the Christmas tree. However, if you are not very comfortable taking photos in low light, this can present a challenge. So take a few minutes ahead of time to find out what the settings are for those locations, because usually in the kitchen, you're going to have plenty of light. They tend to be very bright. The overhead lights are on. Maybe you have light coming in from the outdoors, but around the Christmas tree, it might be a little bit darker. You have to be able to adjust when you go from one location to the other. You want to be able to adjust appropriately in order to get the shot. Now, in one respect, we have the mentality of, well, I don't want to shoot at too high an ISO because I don't want to get a lot of grain in my images. But the other camp is, all right, if you don't want to miss the action because you can't get a high enough shutter, go ahead and go up on your ISO. A lot of today's cameras have gotten a lot better with controlling noise from, low light. Additionally, there are things that you can do in post-production to help reduce the noise. That aside, what I would like to suggest is, what would you rather have at the end of your family holiday? A bunch of blurry pictures that have no noise, or a bunch of sharp images that capture the mood and the excitement and the enjoyment, but have a little bit of noise? For me, it's a no-brainer. I'd rather be able to capture the moment without worried about low light shutter. All right? Because that's just going to introduce blur, motion blur, because the kids are moving a little bit too fast, and it's just going to get out of hand for you. All right? So don't be afraid to up your ISO. All right, tip number 3. While you are playing around setting up for your lighting, also pay attention to your backgrounds. You want to keep the backgrounds fairly simple. And oftentimes, you'll want to choose a location where obviously you can see the kids opening up their gifts, all right? But you do have control and you do have a say of how you're going to create your composition. right? Obviously, it'd be nice to have something like the Christmas tree, or maybe you got a nice little fireplace going on. Keep it corralled so that your composition looks pretty for your photos. And make sure that the kids are positioned within your composition rather than you going to your subject and trying to compose something, and then all you get are grandma and grandpa's legs as they're sitting down in the easy chair behind the kids, which some people will argue it's not necessarily the cleanest, nicest picture. Okay, so pick your background and place your subjects within that background. Okay, which gets me to the a little variation on that, kind of like a bonus tip. When you have the little ones, obviously they like to sit on the floor to open up their gifts. Get down on their level. All right, that means you should get down onto the floor as well. Yeah, I know some of us with older bones, it makes it a little bit more, of a struggle. But when you're down at their level, you can shoot that nice composition behind them rather than a bunch of carpeting around them. Okay? Plus, you also get to see within the frame, you also get to see their expression as they're looking down, opening up their gifts, rather than if you were higher, like sitting on a couch or even standing up, which I would not recommend. At that point, you're basically getting them unwrapping their gifts, but you're photographing the tops of their heads and you're missing their expressions. And at that point, you have to just say, hey, Bobby, look up so I can take your picture. By that time, the moment's gone. All right. And all you're doing is trying to recreate something that passed, and the emotion's going to be a little deflated from that image. So get down onto their level, get down on the ground. You're going to be there for the remainder of the gift opening, so don't worry about it. And then when the gifts are unwrapped, then at that point you can have somebody help you up. Which, again, I want to emphasize, try to control your environment. I know paper starts flying all over the place with the kids' excitement. If you can get a couple of adults to kind of clear that mess out of the way, it just makes your composition a little bit cleaner. Okay? So just some food for thought. All right. Tip number 4 is fairly simple, but some people have a problem with this, and that is anticipate the action. All right, anticipate the action. All right, you want to be ahead of the action, so that way when the child opens up the gift, all right, you're already prepared, ready to take that starburst of a smile as they get their favorite gift. All right, and don't be stingy with your frames. Right? Digital film is very cheap nowadays. Go ahead and fire off multiple shots. That way you're guaranteed that if you shoot 5, 6, 7 frames, at least you're guaranteed that one of them will be good for sharing. All right. And of course, try to focus on the eyes, anticipate the action. Okay. And the last one is probably the hardest one to follow. And I know I suffer from this at times. And that is, don't get too hung up on being a photographer. Remember, these are family events. You're building memories. All right. If you're hiding behind a camera and looking at everything through that camera lens, it's very easy to disassociate yourself from the emotions and the fun and miss out on the big picture. All right. So get a few shots, create those memories with a photo, but don't forget to kick back and enjoy the moment with your kids, with your grandkids, with your family and friends. All right. So anyhow, those are my 5 tips. And hopefully you guys are going to have a fantastic holiday, regardless of this COVID situation. And I look forward to seeing your holiday pics posted on social media. All right. With that said, what I'd like to do is go ahead and actually, let me just make a reminder. Coming up next month, what is it? January 5th, I am doing a presentation for the North Haven Camera Club. So if you're a member of the North Haven Camera Club, I'll be giving a talk there about lighting for texture, right? So if you are a people photographer, if you are a still life photographer, you're going to get a lot out of that session. All right. That said, let's open up discussion. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Actually, let's see. I have a question in my chat. What do you think about bouncing flash? All right, this is from Pam. Pam, what do I think about bouncing flash? I use it all the time. All right, so let's take the scenario of the family event. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, usually around a Christmas tree, we like to keep the lights, the ambient lights, a little bit on the lower side in order to appreciate the lights that are on the Christmas tree. So that means that I need to be very careful about how I expose for that particular scene. So one way, obviously, is to use the ambient light and make sure that you're shooting at a high enough shutter speed in order to capture the moment, but yet also make sure that you have a proper exposure. All right. And typically this will mean going up on your ISO. All right. If you're comfortable with a flash unit, whether it's on your camera or off camera flash, typically in a small room like in a house, I will definitely bounce it. I will never ever directly face the flash into my scene. I will bounce it behind me. Actually, let me give me 1 second. I'm gonna go behind the curtain here, and let me grab a flash. There we go. My little green screen behind me. All right, so here's my flash. It's the Canon 580 EX. Okay. I don't have a lens. I don't have a lens on, but we don't need a lens. Okay. So typically you'll see a lot of people in this configuration. All right. So if you have everybody in front of you, what's going to happen is you have a very small light source that's going to be shooting a bright light into your subject. All right. And typically for presents, you're going to have things that are made out of plastic, very reflective. All that reflective stuff is just going to bounce a lot of the light back at the camera and cause a lot of specularity. So what I will do is I will take this and turn it completely around and typically slightly up over my head. All right, so what this is going to do is going to send the light behind me, and any wall that is behind me is now going to act like a big reflector. All right, and now instead of having a small light source hitting my subject, I'm going to have a very large light source hitting my subject. All right. And that's going to soften the light on everything in front of me. Okay. So depending on, you know, the way you're, how the architecture is in your room, whether you have high ceilings or low ceilings. You know, another thing is you can bounce it straight up. Okay. But I find this tends to illuminate the upper parts of the subject and not quite so much the lower. So I prefer bouncing it off of a wall. All right. If there's no wall behind you, maybe you have the opening to the kitchen, you know, then you can go ahead and just turn it sideways. Okay. And shoot to the side wall, either on the left or on the right, whatever's closest, and use that as a bounce. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome. All right. Any other questions? Let's get them out. We want to make sure that you get all your holiday photos looking really great. Yes, Linda.
It should be a white wall then. We're looking to bounce it off a white wall. Can't bounce it off a black wall.
Who's got a black wall on their house?
I don't know. We're posting it. I don't know.
I actually know people with black walls in their houses, an accent wall.
Okay, well, you'll just...
The lighter the better, not the dark walls.
Well, okay. Typically, most houses aren't going to have very dark walls. Yeah, I can understand, you know.
Fine family.
Fine, yeah. Okay, so that's going to absorb a lot of the light. At that case, if you have darker walls, well, first of all, let me address colored walls. Okay. There's really nothing that you can do to control the color of the walls. You just have to use whatever is available and then color correct in post. All right. And you're going to realize that you're going to get some color cast. Now, typically what I find is most people's houses, they tend to go with warmer tones on their walls rather than cooler tones. All right. So if the color tone is on the warm side, you're really not going to, I wouldn't say you need to stress too much about it, because it's really not going to do, you know, for a family photo, it's really not going to do too much as far as introducing a lot of crazy colors. All right. If you have something that's a little bit on the bluer side, or worse still, if you have something that has a green cast to it, yeah, at that point you might want to correct for that green cast, because obviously you don't want your subjects looking a little on the sickly side. All right. So at that point, what I will do is typically in Lightroom, I will select all my images that have people in it, and I'll color correct for skin tone within those images. Okay. If you have darker walls, all right, like Linda says, she's got paneling, all right, this does present a little bit of a challenge. And at that point, you can do a couple of things, all right? You can go up on the power of your flash, all right, and kind of just try to overpower. Oh, my video's going nuts here. Try to overpower the darkness of the walls, you know, just by sheer light power. Or you can go ahead and grab a white bed sheet and pin it up strategically behind you and bounce off of that. I know it's not the most pleasant thing to look at, but you know, if you're not shooting in the direction of that sheet, but that sheet is going to be useful as a reflector, then, and if it makes your images look better, yeah, put up with, you know, a little bit of a ugly sheet behind you. People will understand. Okay. So that answers the black walls question.
Is that when they put the white card on the flash unit itself?
The white card absolutely does nothing.
Does nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. That white card, yeah, it kind of pushes a little bit light forward, but the purpose of that white card, believe it or not, is to create specular highlight in the eye. All right. So, for example, with the flash pointing upwards towards the ceiling, all right, because the light source is pointing up, it's not going to create a highlight on the eye, you know, that little point of light. So if I lift that little card, all right, as the light is going up, it's going to illuminate that card, and this card gets reflected in the eye, and that's what's going to create a little catch light. That's all. That's really all it does. So, but that was
learn something new every day. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome. Yeah, you know, it's funny because a lot of times when I'm teaching about lighting, one of the things that I stress a lot is angle of incidence, angle of reflection. And everybody kind of like nods their head like, yeah, I get it. But people don't quite realize the subtleties of that one little rule, you know? And this little white card here is precisely that, because we don't think, oh yeah, you know, light's pointing straight up, it's not pointing into the eye. So the eye is a very reflective surface. All right. So if it has no light to reflect, you're not going to get that catch light. All right, because the light's pointing straight up. Okay. So if you give it something to reflect, then you get a catch light. So cool. Any other questions?
Are we going into Photoshop?
Yeah, anything you want. Open season.
I would love to know more about layers, and in particular, I would also love to know how to, well, I guess I don't understand the whole sequence of layers. Kind of do and I kind of don't. So it's always guesswork for me. And then if I make a cutout, whoop, you're blinking.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm blinking.
Oh. Should I keep asking?
Yeah, oh yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So if I make a cutout, say I want to get rid of something, and I cut out a out of focus bird, and I want to fill it, it's always guesswork for me, and I always end up just cloning in what I need to fill, and I'm never sure how I get to that point. So that's two. And the third one is, if you want to like flip something, like say you want to make a rectangular, say you have a diner, you want to take half that diner and flip it to the other side because there's cars on one side and not on the other. How do you do that?
Wow, very specific.
Oh, I lost your sound.
Oh, very specific. Yeah, there we go. Okay, Zoom is acting up. Why is Zoom? You know, when I think I have something figured out something else plays havoc here. Okay. All right. Let me see if we can go to the desktop. All right. If you want to go ahead and just expand my screen to fill up your screen, all right, just go to the hover over the three little buttons on my screen, and it should say pin to second screen or something like that. Okay. I'm not going to share this. Well, yeah, maybe I'll see if sharing the screen. Let's see if that. All right. Everybody see my screen okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, we're good.
All right. Let me go to Lightroom and I'm just going to open up an image here. And we're okay. So I have an image, and let's say I wanted to, well, let's say I wanted to clone this out. Okay. There's a couple ways we can do it. Okay. Well, let me talk in terms of layers in general. All right, because Pam, your question is actually kind of complex. All right, and I don't want to hog up too much time, getting into too complex a question. Okay, but typically layers, there are several types of layers that are available to us. Okay, there are image layers, which is what we are looking at here. So the base layer is an image layer, and basically what it means is this contains all the data that pertains to what makes your image what it is. Okay, above that, we can apply a variety of layers that modify that base layer. All right, and they could be an effect layer, meaning it adds some kind of effect to the image. It could be an adjustment layer, so it adjusts certain aspects of the image. We could also apply additional image layers on top of this, okay? And what we need to do is we have to understand that anything we add above is going to affect everything below it, okay? So for example, let's say I wanted to enhance the exposure on this. All right. Now, I've said in the past that one of my favorite layers to use in Photoshop is the curves effect layer. Okay. So if we go over to the side here, hold on 1 second. Oh, why is it doing that? Spotlight. Okay. My adjustments box here. Okay. If I click on my curves adjustment, all right, we get our control for our curves adjustment, but you're going to see right here above my image layer is a new layer. All right. And this is what I can control with this curves layer, right? Fairly basic. You should probably be familiar with this part. Okay. Right next to it, though, you're going to see a blank page, a white page. All right. And this represents a layer mask. All right. And layer masks go along with every layer that create, you should have a layer mask, because the layer masks allows you to be able to see through to the underlying layer. All right. So in this particular case, white represents that this effect is being applied to everything on that layer. Okay. Everything on this layer. All right. So if I make an adjustment on my curve to make things darker, what it's doing is on that curve's layer, it's adding darkness to the curve's layer. Okay. But because it allows me to see through to the layer below it, all right, it is also affecting everything below that layer. Okay. So hopefully you understand that concept. So everything here is going to trickle down and affect everything below it. So if I have 5 layers below my curves adjustment, it's going to affect every layer below it. If I don't want to affect everything below it, I can say just affect the next layer down, and we can do that by clicking on this little icon, all right, which locks the effect. All right, you can see a little down arrow. It locks the effect to the next level down. Okay, so everything I do on this curves adjustment layer is only going to affect the next layer down. Okay, typically adjustment layers, you want to affect everything. All right, typically that's how it works. All right, because normally you're going to apply different layers doing different things to your image. Okay, so now I say, okay, you know what, I want to apply this darkening effect only to the sky. Only to the sky. Okay, right now, because my layer mask is white, it's saying apply it to everything. Okay, so now if I pick a brush, all right, nice, let's pick a nice soft brush, and I'm going to make it fairly large. All right, and if we go over here, these are our foreground color and our background color. Okay, if I make my background color white and my foreground color black, all right, in this case the letter X will toggle between the two. Okay, I can then paint black onto my layer mask. Okay, and when I paint black, okay, let's see, you'll notice, all right, you'll notice that on my layer mask, all right, you see that black? The black is telling Photoshop to hide the effect of that curves adjustment to everything below it. Okay, so I'm removing, in essence, I am removing that effect from the scene. Wow, my computer is really going slow right now. I'm chewing up energy here somehow. Okay, but you can see how wherever I paint black, okay, the original image, okay, the original brightness of the image is coming through. Okay, see that? All right, because what I've done with this layer mask is I said, I want you to show the effect of the curves layer, which is darkening, I want that to be only in the sky. All right. So if we look at the layer mask, you see that the sky is white and my foreground is black. All right. So now if I want to, I can go ahead and make my sky brighter, make my sky even darker. Okay. Or I can even just drag it down and make it, god awful gray. Now, obviously my mask isn't perfect. This is just for illustration purposes. Okay. You can see that there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. Okay. But I'm not going to go into a lot of, where is my, oops, X. There we go. I'm not going to get in a lot into making masks. That's a big lesson. But in general, this is where you make sure you're on your mask here. Switch. Okay. So you can control specific areas of your image as to what gets what effect. All right. So this is a prime example of a curves adjustment tackling just a very specific part. Okay. So now I can take another adjustment. Let's say I want to do a levels adjustment. Okay. It's going to place it above. All right. And like everything else, it's going to affect everything below it. All right. So if I decide that I want to shift my midtones, okay, for some reason I want to shift my midtones, okay, it's going to affect everything below, including that curves adjustment that I just created previously. Okay. So you have to pay attention to how you build your effects. All right. So now, along with this, I also have a layer mask, which I can then take a brush and say, all right, I want to affect just the houses. All right. So I can go ahead and paint on everything else. Okay. So now this can be a little bit tricky. So I'll give you a little hint. All right. Let me delete that. Control I or Command I, if you're on a Mac, will inverse, meaning turn black to white, white to black, your mask. So if I do a Control I, what this is telling me is that I am hiding, all right, black hides, white reveals. Black hides everything on that levels adjustment layer. All right, so I can move my sliders on here any which way I want, and it's not going to affect the image because I'm hiding the effect. All right. But this is a great way of doing small areas. All right. So let's back it up a little bit. All right. So white shows. All right. I can go ahead and say, okay, I want to bring my midtones. All right. And I want to affect just the houses. All right. So I'm going to pay attention to what this effect is doing just to the houses. I don't care about the trees. I don't care about the sky. All right. I'm just concentrating on one part. Okay. So I'm going to look at that. Once I get it looking right, I'm going to go ahead and invert. All right. So now I'm hiding everything. I'm going to get my brush, and because the mask is black, I'm going to make sure I select a white white as my foreground, and I can now paint just on the area that I want to tackle. All right, and that's just making those houses a little bit darker. All right. And of course, there are ways of making, you know, more appropriate masks. I'm just doing down and dirty. Somebody had a question? No? Okay. All right, so those are adjustment layers. All right, so adjustment layers typically don't hide anything underneath it. All right, all they're doing is causing some form of effect. Okay, so now let's say I want to get rid of this little wheelbarrow here. Okay, so I want to say, okay, I'm going to take a portion of this bush here, or maybe even this bush, okay, and I'm going to make a selection. So M for marquee. I'm going to make a big square, okay, and if you notice, I have my original background layer, which contains my image information, okay, and I am going to create a copy. All right, Control J or Command J makes a copy. And you notice that it created a new layer, all right, and this layer only contains that bit of information. All right, so I have an image layer that everything around it is invisible except that little square. Okay, so now I can take that square and I can move it over and use that to hide anything underneath it. Okay, and at this point I can now add a mask to that, and using black to hide. All right, let me get my black and make this a little smaller. All right, I can do a very quick and dirty little mask. All right, and voila, the wheelbarrow is gone. All right, now mind you, this is not the best way, because what you're seeing now is a repeat pattern. All right, you're seeing this bush repeated over here. So I won't call this a successful way of doing this, but hopefully it introduces you to the concept of how you can build layers to do different things. So to stretch it a little bit further, we can use this to add elements to our image. All right, so instead of a bush, maybe you want to put a car in the driveway. I could source a car from another photograph, cut it out using a mask, drop it in, and now it'll look like I have a car sitting in the driveway. And that is an image layer on top of an image layer. Okay? All right, so that's image layers and that's adjustment layers. All right, and then the other thing would be effect layers, and that would be typically effects. You need to apply it to something. All right, so at that point I might say, okay, I want to take all of this and I am going to copy and cancel that. Control Shift E. Wait a minute, let me Control Shift E. Nope, wrong one. Control Alt Shift Z. Where is it? Come on. There we go. Okay, so I did a layer copy. So this right here is everything below it compressed down. All right, so everything you see here is all of these layers combined. All right, let me just group that. Actually, control group. Come on. Doesn't want to group for me. Okay. So now at this point, I can say, okay, I'm going to go to 8-bit. And I'm going to add a crazy filter. Okay. Some crazy filter. Let's see. Let's poster edge. Let me back that up. Maybe let me do a nice watercolor effect here. Let's see.
Can I just ask real quick? That was Control Alt Shift.
Control Alt Shift E. We'll take everything below or everything in your stack and create a new layer. It's basically you're rasterizing everything into its own layer without deleting anything below it. Okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so let's just add some, make this look a little bit more watercolor-y. All right, nothing too crazy. Come on. Hit OK. All right, so now I'm applying a filter effect. Okay, filter effect, Control 0. Okay, and I want to say, I just want to add that effect to the image down below it. So right now, this layer hides everything below it. Okay, so I'm going to make a mask. Okay, and by default, the mask is going to be white, which means it's going to show everything on that layer. Okay. If I want to hide specific areas, like for example, I want to hide the sky, I want to hide the trees, I want to hide the road. I even want to hide these two houses. I want to just concentrate on this middle house. Okay. Again, I don't want to have to paint everything around it. I'm going to make my job easier. I'm going to select my brush, make it black. All right, because black is the opposite of the white. And I'm going to go ahead and paint on that layer mask. And why is it not painting? Because my computer wants to act up. Really? You're making me look bad here, computer.
Doug, I think you got the brush mode set to difference. Would you want that set at normal?
Oh, it is set. Thank you. Good spotting. Yes. Oh, hey, now it works. Thank you. Get so caught up at times that the little things just pass by you, which is easy to do. All right, so now I just paint on the house, which is what I want to convert. Okay. Rather than paint, spend a lot of time painting everything, I just paint that. Go to my layer mask, invert it, Control I or Command I. Okay. And I have a big mess, but you get to see exactly what's going on here. And of course, I can go ahead and let me go to my, okay. And then now, on top of all this, I can say, let me add another layer, another curves adjustment, because everything's starting to look a little muddy. I'm going to go ahead and brighten everything up. Okay. Big mess. All right. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of understanding of how layers work. All right. Pam, did that kind of sort of answer your questions?
Yeah, it did.
Or did I, you can be honest if I confused you even more.
No, you didn't confuse me. I kind of get that. I'm just wondering, like, if I make a selection and I get those marching ants.
Yes.
Right? and I do what I need to do, I have it on a layer, how do I get rid of the marching ants?
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah?
All right. Here's my marching ants. Okay.
Yeah.
The marching ants means that everything here is a selection.
Right.
All right. So from this, I can actually do a levels adjustment, and it's going to do. Well, let me go to. Be nice if I were on the actual layer here. All right. It's going to affect everything on there. All right. This is the wrong way to do it because this is a very destructive way. All right. But I'm just showing you so you can see that, you know, it's affecting that selection. Okay.
Right. Right.
If I say, oh, I don't need this selection, let me get rid of it, it's Control or Command D. Control or Command D. And it gets rid of it. Okay. I think sometimes just the escape key won't do it. Control or Command D. Basically deselect. D for deselect.
Okay. So
All right.
what if like I had a bird feeder and I had 2 birds in focus, one wasn't.
Okay.
I want to get that third bird out, and it would have been really hard to get it out without messing up the bird seed and all that. So I did, you know, a selection
Right.
and got rid of it, but I kept seeing those marching ants no matter what. So do I just do deselect, Control D?
Control D, yeah.
And I still have the mask. I'm not getting rid of the mask by doing that, right?
Well, yeah, they're 2 different animals. A mask is its own entity. The marching ants is a selection. A mask is its own entity. All right. So, for example, all right, let me zoom in here, and I say I want to get rid of this window. Okay. So I'll go to my lasso tool, and I'm going to make a selection of just the window. All right. So quick and dirty. All right.
Yeah.
So right now, all I have here, all right, is my layer, which is an image layer, okay, with no mask. All right. So notice that there's no rectangle page next to it.
Right.
Okay. But on that layer, I have a selection, which is shown by the marching ants. Okay. At this point, the marching ants, all that's doing is saying, Photoshop, I want you to concentrate just on this little section. All right. In this case, it's the window. All right. I don't want you to pay attention to anything else but just the window. All right. So now, what do you want to do with that window? Okay. So what I can do is I can say, all right, I'm going to recolor my window. All right. So I might say, all right, so let's do a hue saturation adjustment. So if I click up here, all right, it's going to create a new layer, all right, which is my hue saturation. But if you notice, because it was selected, it now created automatically a layer mask, all right? And that layer mask is only to the shape of what I had selected. All right, because I told Photoshop, just concentrate on that. Okay, so now that's one thing that you can do. So now I can do whatever I want. I can go crazy making it different colors. All right, I can make it, you know, blend into the little bit more into the color of the house. okay? Whatever it is I want, okay? But notice that the marching ants are gone.
Yeah, how come?
All right, because when I created that layer, I basically told Photoshop, what I have selected, I now want you to make a mask for that effect layer. Okay? If I say, oh man, I need that selection back because I want to do something else with it. Okay? Which is very easy. All you got to do is click Control or Command and press on the layer mask. All right, so click on the layer mask. All right, so if you notice, all right, when I press down the Control key, my cursor changes. All right, and you're gonna see that little marching ant symbol around it. All right, it's basically saying make a selection from that mask. Okay, make a selection from that little white spot on my mask. Okay, now this is a concept you should try to get a hold of, because when you start building more complex masks, understanding how to control click, all right, to make a selection will play, will allow you to make more complex masks. All right, and we'll see if we can get into that. All right, so now I have my selection back. All right, now I can say, you know what? I'm going to make a new layer, new blank layer. Okay, so I created a new blank layer above it. Okay, and I want to say I want to where is it? Image layer. See, I don't use this effect all too much. Fill, content aware fill. All right. Okay, and I want to use the surrounding area. Okay, and I don't want to use this part, and I don't want to use that part. Don't want to use that. Okay, so everything that's green around it is going to use to sample in order to get rid of that window. All right, so this, yep, so this is telling, right, so this is telling Photoshop everything inside those marching ants is what I want this effect to target. All right, and what I'm doing is I'm using the Adobe AI to help me fill in as best as possible based on the surrounding area. All right, so everything that is green is what Photoshop determines is going to be the best source as a replacement within that rectangular area. All right, and then over on the left hand side we have a preview. Okay, and of course we can look to manipulate it a little bit, and say, okay, I don't want to use too much of the shadow areas. Okay, I don't want to use too much of those edges. All right, it might update it. Okay, and then you hit okay, and voila, I now have a new layer, a new image layer. Okay, and the new image, let me just get rid of everything. All right, the only thing on this layer is everything that we, all right, somebody's talking in the background. If you can mute the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right, so everything on this layer is only what is being used to hide the window. All right, so now if I do Control D, All right, I get rid of my marching ants, and I now have a layer, not the best layer, and definitely not the best, cloning here. All right, but from this, it gets me close. Now I have something to work with. I can go ahead and clean it up, make it look a little bit more realistic. Okay, but that's how you can get your selections. All right, now because this is only a small area, I can go ahead and use Control and click on that, and it's going to create a selection based on that layer. All right, so now I can get my selection back without having to rebuild anything. Okay, does that answer your question there?
It does. Thank you
Okay.
very much. I'm just wondering, when you say, okay, click OK, like to enter it.
Oh, yeah.
Where is that?
All right, so this is the effect on my image. Okay. This is the layer that controls that effect. Right? That is, all right, so this layer here represents just that tiny little bit of the image. All right, so if I want this to become a selection again, I have to press the Control key or the Command key on a Mac and click on this. All right, now because this selection and this selection are the same, I can click on either one of these and it's going to get me the same result. All right, because for this effect, remember I originally used the selection I made from this. All right, and I made this mask based on the original selection that I made with the lasso tool. All right, so if we walk it back, we can trace it back to my original lasso. Right? So now if let's say I want to get rid of this little vent, I can do the same thing again, make a selection. All right, once I have a selection, I can then go ahead and say image, oh no, layer, what was it? I never remember. Here we go. Edit, content aware fill, brings me back up. Not a very good selection there, so I'm going to get rid of everything underneath this eaves here. I don't want that influencing. I want this. Okay. I want to see if I can make that. See, now it's looking a lot better. Okay. I hit OK. All right, all the way down here at the bottom, I hit OK. And it creates, it created on the same layer because I had that same layer selected. Okay. And then to get rid of the marquee, I do Control D or Command D, and that little window is gone. All right, makes sense now?
Yes, thank you so
All
much.
right. So now the nice thing about, once you understand how to make selections, like for example with the lasso, the lasso tool, all right. Here we have, let's, for example, your bird feeder, and you have the 3 birds, and you just want to get rid of one. You can now make your selection, and you say, okay, I want to get rid of it. All right. So you can use the AI like we did previously, or you can say, you know what? I don't like the way the AI did it. All right. Because you saw the AI isn't 100% perfect. You say, I want to be a little bit more careful with my selection. all right, I'm going to use, let's say, the clone stamp tool. All right, so I go over here, I select my clone stamp tool. All right, I'm going to make a smaller, this is probably the worst example here. All right, and I'm going to take a sample. I'm going to use the Alt key. All right, notice how the cursor changes to a target. That's going to be my target. All right, I'm going to make sure that my opacity is 100%, my flow is at 100%, everything is aligned, and I'm sampling everything from the current layer and below. All right, current layer and below. Otherwise, because there's nothing here, it's just going to sample nothing. All right, and then I can go ahead and sample, get rid of, sample, get rid of, sample, get rid of. All right, so you can sample very specific areas of your image to get rid of, you know, that bird. All right, and in certain areas you'll want to replace it with maybe a little portion of the bird feeder in order to make it look a little bit more realistic. All right, actually here, let's do this here. Okay, all right, let me do, I'm just going to select this. Guess this is what I want to work on. All right, I don't want to go anywhere outside that area. All right, so I'm going to Alt, I'm going to click right here. That's my target. I'm going to come right over here and I'm going to say, oh, target, let's bring it up just a touch. There we go. And I want to get rid of all that craziness inside that window. Okay, there. And now I made that window look a little bit more complete without that, you know, crazy whatever reflection it was in there. Okay, so that's another way you can use selections. Okay, again, you can use selections to make your masks. So, you know, you can see, for example, here, because I was just demonstrating quick and dirty, you can see how my mask is really bad. All right, if I wanted to create a more decent mask, I could actually go ahead and take my time and build a proper mask based on, you know, a more controlled selection. Okay. And then you would make your mask to control the effect just on that given area. And then when you don't need it, you can Control D. All right. All right. Any other questions for that? Hopefully that answered your question, Pam.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
All right. Now,
Of course, it'll take a while to sink in.
yeah, you know, it takes a while to understand selections and layer masks. Once you get a grip on those two aspects, it opens up a whole new level of editing within Photoshop. The one thing that, from experience, I found when I was learning Photoshop is understanding not necessarily what layer did what, but when to use them. All right, because if you notice, we have a bunch of different adjustments that we can use. All right, and a lot of times it's like, well, I kind of sort of know what I need to do, but I don't know which one of these to choose. And let me make it super easy for you. 90% of the time, it's going to be a curves adjustment. That's probably going to be the most popular adjustment layer that you will ever use in Photoshop. It's probably the most versatile of all the layer effects. Okay. All right. Let me revert this mess that I made here. There we go. Okay. All right. But yeah, using layers and layer masks is pretty complex. I had already done one session on how to use channels to create layer masks. Okay. So for example, you know, you can say, all right, out of all of these, which one is the, let's see, why am I, all right, so there's my red channel, there's my green channel, and there's my blue channel. All right, if I was targeting the trees, all right, and again, white reveals, black hides, all right, and I wanted to target the trees, I want to find a I want to find one of these channels that has these trees in as much contrast from everything else as I possibly could. So it might be the red, it might be the green, or it might be the blue. All right, so the blue gives me the best contrast against the sky. Okay, but this one, well, actually this one, excuse me, gives me a little bit more contrast against the house. So with a little bit of experience, you'll get a chance to pick out which one is which. But to make things easier, I'm going to go with this one, right? And if I use the control, press down control and click on just the blue channel, we get my marching ants. Okay, now, if you notice, these marching ants are a lot more complex than the little rectangle I built earlier. All right, this particular selection is based on the luminosity values of the image. All right, so it's going to select everything from middle gray to shadow. Okay, so now that I have this selection, all right, I can go ahead and make a copy, Control C or Command C. All right, go back to my RGB, go back to my layers. All right, I'm going to create a curves adjustment because, like I said, the curves adjustment is going to be probably your most popular one. All right, and if you notice, right next to my curves adjustment, it created a mask based on the selection that I made in the channel. All right, that's what my mask looks like. Okay, so from here, I can manipulate this mask and say, okay, you know what? All right, actually, let me show you. Okay, if I wanted to make my trees a little darker, but keep my sky, all right, we go here. I want you to notice when I manipulate this, what it's manipulating, first of all. Right? It's manipulating all the light areas of the image, okay? Because white reveals, black hides, all right? So we're hiding the effect off of the trees. All right, so if I want to target my trees, I would need to do what? I would need to inverse my mask. So if I do Control I, Command I to inverse, okay? Now if I go to my channels, you're gonna notice that it's affecting the trees. And to a certain extent, it's affecting the houses, because if we look at the mask, all right, you can see that the area where the houses are not completely black. All right. So it's allowing about 50%, because this is roughly 50% gray here. So it's allowing 50% of that effect to come through. But everywhere where it's white, all along the trees and underneath the porch and the windows, everything that was in deep shadow in my original image is going to be affected. All right, so I can brighten up those areas. Okay. So now I have a much brighter tree line, much brighter houses. All right, that's matching the sky a little bit more. I can now take another curves adjustment on top of all that and bring it down. And I now have a little bit more of a dynamic range image. All right. So that's my original. That's after the adjustments. Original after adjustments. Okay.
That's cool.
All right. And I did that just with 2 layers. Just with 2 layers. All right. And this goes to show, once you understand selections a little bit more and you understand layers a little bit more, you'll be able to get to your edit a lot faster. All right. And with a lot more clearness to it. Okay. All right. So yeah, so this last part, it's a little bit heavy duty. You know, we got into a little bit complex mask building. All right. But hopefully you get an understanding. Now, let me take it even a step further and really just fry your brains tonight. Okay. If I press and hold the Alt key or Option key for you Mac people, and I select my mask, that's how I display just my mask. Okay. Now, because this is a pixel-based mask, all right, which is based on shades of white, shades of gray, and black, I can manipulate this just like I can any image. All right, so I can take a layer adjustment. So go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. All right, I like levels for this kind of work, because what I want to do is I want to take these midtones and I want to make these midtones a little bit darker. All right, so I'm going to take my midtones and I'm going to push it down. Okay. And if you notice that the houses have gone a little bit darker. All right. So that means that effect. All right. And we're going to bring our whites up a little bit more. That effect of that curve is going to affect the white areas a lot more than the dark areas, because these are no longer that middle gray. We've pushed it away from the middle gray into the deeper shadows. So it's going to affect this area less. All right. So I say, okay, come back to the layer. Okay. Before, after, before, after. All right. So you notice that I want you to pay attention to this area here. See how dark this is? All right. And I want you to notice this area and notice how dark this is. All right. And I'm using dark relatively to what the effect I'm applying. All right. I want you to notice those 2 areas, the deep dark area and the not so deep dark area on the house. All right. Once I turn my effect on, you'll notice that this the value of this dark area has really been lightened up a lot more than this area. All right, this did get lighter, but it's not at the same level that this got lighter. All right, because if you remember my mask, this was a lot of whites in here, while this was more towards the dark grays. All right, so this effect is going to affect this less than this area. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Okay. So now you have a new tool in your arsenal, and I hope you experiment with it. And you're going to notice that it's going to open up a lot of neat little things that you can do with your image. All right. All right, let me stop sharing. We'll go back to the chat. All right. And we're down to 3 people. Any other questions I can answer for you guys?
I think you fried my brain.
I don't know if that should be a badge that I pin on myself.
I just mean I learn something from you every week, even if I don't remember it the next time you even come close, I'm like, oh wait, he showed us that before.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, it's like building a jigsaw puzzle. You start with the pieces that you recognize, and then after a while, you're starting to look for all the color pieces that fit into the groups. I'm showing you some of those colors. All right. A couple of times, you know, I show you these colors, you're going to go, oh, that color and that color go together because the shapes match. All right. And then you'll be able to then identify those shapes and start making those connections on your own. All right. Because you've identified the colors. So.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Now again, you know, Pam, if you're hung up on a specific, because I know you're talking about the birds with the bird feeders, and there's a little bit of a complexity involved with, you know, getting rid of a bird when there's, you know, some kind of busy background. So if you have problems with it, you know, shoot me an email and I'll try to help you out. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I got that one. I still want to know how to flip things. So like if one eye is out of focus and the other eye is perfect, or, you know, somebody's like looking away or something, I don't know, like if one eye's not right, I'd like to be able to take the other eye and flip it over.
Gotcha. Let me see if I can. I don't think I have anything here for an example. Typically, all right, let me take these two. I'll take this one and I'll take this one. And I'm going to open it up in Photoshop. Let's see. Edit in, open as layers. Let me go to Photoshop. Okay. Do it kind of quick and dirty. All right. So typically, in a situation like that, you'll want to look at the shot before and or the shot after and see if you can find a suitable replacement. Okay, so like typically, you know, shooting a group of people, somebody's bound to be caught with their eyes closed. All right, so I often take several pictures, one right after the other. All right, usually, you know, 3 or 4. All right, and I hope and pray that that one person just didn't get caught with their eyes closed on all 4 images. All right. But what you're looking for is you're looking for that particular asset in one of the other frames. Okay, so let's take this image, all right, and I say I want to replace this statue with.
Doug, are we supposed to be able to see
Oh.
the screen?
It would be nice if I shared, huh? Yes, there we go.
Thank you.
My bad, my bad. All right, you're seeing my Photoshop now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And of course, my Zoom's not capturing my desktop. Okay. Well, anyhow. Okay, so I want to, all right, I have this image. Let's say I want to replace this soldier with this one. Okay? So similar situation. In your case, you're swapping one eye for another, but it's the same thing. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection of this soldier. All right. Now, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do it very quickly. All right. Just because
How are you doing that?
I am using the lasso tool and a pen.
Okay.
My Wacom tablet. That's why I can do it that quickly.
Okay. I was wondering.
Yeah. All right. And I want to get rid of everything around the soldier. I just want to keep the soldier. All right. Actually, let me see if I'll get some of the base as well. There we go. All right. So I'm going to make a mask. Okay. Oops. I need my mask on this one. There we go. There we go. All right, so what I've done is I've masked out everything but the soldier. All right, so there's the original. There's the second layer with everything masked out but the soldier. All right, so I'm going to click on my move tool, okay, and I'm going to move it down and put it kind of sort of in place on that plinth where I want, okay? And hopefully if you shot your images in succession, you're not going to need to do too much of a crazy cut and paste. But in this case, you can see one size is not the same as the other. All right, so let me go ahead and resize my guy. Move him down. Okay. Oh, move him down. All right, and I'm gonna need to get a little creative with my background. So I'm gonna hide this layer, okay, and I just want to see this guy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Adobe AI. Oh, where's my lasso? All right, I'm going to lasso him. All right, because he's a little bit different shape than my original lasso. I can't use that other selection because it's a different orientation, different scale, okay? And I'm gonna go edit, content aware fill, and I just want a quick and dirty fill. All right, quick and dirty. Okay, and you can see that if it filled it in, nothing pretty. All right, I'm gonna say okay. All right. And the reason I don't need anything pretty is because I'm going to be putting something else in its place. All right. So we let Photoshop do what it's got to do. There it is. Control D gets rid of my marching ants. I now unhide my layer. Bring, oh, why? Oh, I know why. Because I'm on the wrong layer. All right, bring this guy, put it in place. All right. Take my brush. Make sure my brush has black. And I'm just going to clean up that edge a little bit. All right. And at this point, you know, this is where you make your selection a little bit better in order to blend in one to the other. Okay. And by the time you're done, you will have an open eye on your person who originally had closed their eye. And it's that simple. Okay?
Thanks, Duck.
Okay. Now,
That's a big help.
yeah, so obviously what I just did is kind of a little on the sloppy side just for speed's sake, but it's the same principle. All right? You just take the useful asset from a different file and you drop it in. All right? Now, if you don't have a useful asset, well, that becomes a little bit more challenging, okay? So in order to flip something, the easiest way I do it is, you know, with my, the selection that I want to flip, selected. Where is it? All right. So I want to, let's say I want to flip the soldier. Okay. So I have that layer selected. All right. I make sure that I have my selection, my move tool selection selected. All right. And then I'll do Control T. Oops. Double click. Control T. All right. Which is the transform, or Command T, which is transform. And it's going to allow me to see these things. All right. The width and the height in percentages, the angle. So if I want to rotate at an angle, if I want to resize the height or the width, you know, horizontally or vertically. All right. What I'll do is I'll go to the horizontal, or what is it? No, the width. All right. I want to flip it on the width. See where it says 100%. The easiest way I find is just put a negative in front of that, and it flips it. All right. That way I don't have to go searching through menus to find where the flip orientation is. I just go Control T. I do -100 on the width. All right. If I want to flip it the other way, you just go to where it says the height, enter 100, and it flips it that way. Okay. Usually you're never going to flip it that way. It's always going to be like horizontal. Okay. So that's the easiest way I find to flip something. Okay. All right. Rather than going to, where is it? Edit, transform, flip horizontally. Okay. I just make my selection, Control T, drop a negative in there, and I'm done. So there's two ways to do it. Okay. Edit, or where is it? Oh, gotta make sure you're selected. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
All righty.
Perfect.
Oh, we made some headway there.
I learned a lot tonight. Thank you.
My pleasure. That's what we're here for. Learn something new.
Awesome.
All right. Any last minute questions before we close it off? No?
Not from me. I'm good.
All
Merry
right.
Christmas, Happy New Year.
Same to you, Alan. I appreciate it. And that goes for everybody. Be safe. Hopefully Santa will bring you everything you ask for. I know in my household, Santa's a little poor and won't be bringing me what I would like, but hey. Let's see. I haven't even looked at the schedule for January. I mean, I don't know when the first Monday is in January.
January 4.
January 4th? Oh, perfect. All right. So that will be our next session. That way you guys can enjoy your holiday time. And we'll be back to Lightroom. So if anybody has anything they want to suggest to tackle for the Lightroom session, I'm all ears. You know, I'd rather present something that is beneficial to you than me come up with something that you guys could care less about. So feel free to drop it in the chat and the Facebook page, okay?
Thanks, Duck. I'm gonna have to miss that one. I'm sorry.
Oh man, that's it.
It's my granddaughter's second birthday.
Oh, well, then in that case,
Yeah.
by all means, you don't want to be listening to me.
Not,
All right.
not on birthday, but I appreciate it.
Make sure you take lots of pictures because
I'll try.
they only turn two once.
I know. Oh my
And
God. so
they
special.
grow up so fast. My grandkids, they're, you know, I look at them, it's like, just yesterday you were babies.
Oh no.
What the hell happened? You
How old
know?
are they?
7 and 9.
Oh wow. Wow.
They're independent young men now.
Oh wow.
You know, no more hugging and kissing. They don't want that. No more, you know, cuddling. They don't want that. You know,
Oh,
it's like, ah, come on. That was such a brief moment.
You gotta eat it up when you can.
Absolutely. So take advantage of the 2-year-old.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you.
so
And thanks for
Take care.
tonight. And I hope I didn't monopolize everything. I'm sorry if I did. I had a lot of questions.
no, that's fine. You know, I'm sure everybody else. I heard a couple of aha moments from Alan there, so I know he got something out of it.
Oh, good.
Yep.
I'm
So-
glad.
Good.
Good.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure. I appreciate
Happy
you.
holidays.
Happy holidays, and let your friends know about my channel. Let's see if we can get more people in here. Okay.
We will.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Night, Duck.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.